Hello again, friends, and thanks for tuning in today. Our feature car this week is a beautiful owner-restored 1970 Dodge Challenger. It's what's known as an E-body, and it's arguably one of the most popular muscle cars from the classic era. Join us as owner Bill Douglas tells us about his journey with his ultra-cool red Mopar.
Hi, my name is Bill Douglas. I'm the owner of a 1970 Dodge Challenger RT. I purchased the car in 2018. It is a very special car for me. I restored the car, did a rotisserie restoration, starting with I stripped the car all the way down to a shell, started over. Every nut and bolt was done on the car completely. It's a matching numbers 1970 Dodge Challenger. I purchased the car from a man named Dave, who bought it from his best friend, Raymond Ramirez. In 1970, Raymond Ramirez purchased the car May 29th, 1970. He bought the car and drove the car until 1978, at which time it had one accident where it was rear-ended and not fixed correctly. And he continued to drive it until 1978 when he sold it to his best friend Dave. His best friend Dave purchased the car for $800 at that time, and he drove the car on and off. He did some racing with it. They pulled the passenger seat out. Of course, they lost it, and did various activities to it. At which time, in 1980, he put it in storage, and it stayed in storage until the car came back out again in 2018. There was somebody that owned it, but they never changed it over. They never did anything with it, and then I purchased the car. I purchased the car for $31,500. At that time, spent another $1,100 to have the car shipped to Phoenix, Arizona. The car arrived here in January 2018, at which time I was told it was a running and driving car. And when I got the car, obviously it was far from running and driving. So at that time, I'd noticed a lot of bad repairs, a lot of things that weren't correct. So I decided, because it's a matching numbers car and it had all the paper and documentation, I was going to restore the car right. I started by tearing the car down to a shell, completely stripping every nut and bolt, the dash, everything was off that car. I purchased as many parts as I could and kept as much as the original parts. The carburetor was the original carburetor. The intake was the original intake. The exhaust manifolds were the original exhaust manifolds. The fan shroud, radiator, power steering pump, hoses were all original, and some of them I were able to keep. It was original all the way down to the original grill, original bezels, original, most of the trim is all original. The back seat is all original. A lot of the parts were all original I were able to save, and a lot of them were replaced with NOS parts. At that time, it took me 2.5 years before I could really start putting the car back together, rebuilding the gauges, the radio, the speakers. Everything had to be done. I replaced all the brake lines, the fuel lines. I replaced all the brakes, the brake shields, all the suspension, including all the ball joints, the tie rod ends. Everything was replaced. The rear end was completely gone through. The transmission was not rebuilt, neither was the engine. The engine I took apart, pulled it out. It had never been out of the car before. It was the original way it was. I took it apart. I pulled the heads, the intake off, sent the carburetor out, had the original carburetor rebuilt. Then at the bottom end of the engine, I looked, was in really nice shape. At that time, the car only had 37,500 miles on it, original. So then I kept the bottom end and didn't touch it, and then I rebuilt the top end of the engine by putting a new double roller timing chain on it, and also I redid the the heads, doing all new valves and heart seats so it would accept the unleaded gas. At that time, I put the car back together and the engine was pretty much done. Me and a friend of mine, Greg at Custom Bone Scraper Paintworks, we took it over to his house, at which time he proceeded to do all the body work. He did all the sheet metal. He did all the paint. We replaced the one door skin, 2 inner fenders. Those are the parts that I replaced on it. And I also had the frame damage that was fixed on it from when it was in an accident in 1978. At that time, we got it all done, and the car was finished in 2019. After 2019, I finally got to drive and enjoy the car. And that's about it, guys. That's about what was done to the 1970 Dodge Challenger, and I'm pretty proud of it. And since that time, it's just been a blessing.
Thanks for watching. Please give us a thumbs up, share this video with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. We've got a lot of great stuff coming your way. See you next week.